Hi, I'm Luke Gilfillan. Welcome to the Lounge with Luke Gilfillan. Hello, and welcome back to the Lounge with Luke Gilfillan. Today we only have one story out of the Wednesday Journal. District 200. I don't even know if I've covered this story before, but I might have, might not have. The story is called District 200 Votes to End School Resource Officer Program. With the $155,000 position gone, district now has money to pay for social worker. Oak Park, this is by Michael Romaine, our third favorite or second favorite reporter over here at the Lounge with Luke Gilfillan. I don't think we've really established that yet. I think we should have a vote. I'll put one of those posts in the community tab, who is our favorite reporter over here at the Lounge with Luke Gilfillan. And then it's who are our favorite reporters over here at the Lounge with Luke Gilfillan, and then it's list the names, and you gotta vote on which reporters you like the most. Woohoo! Okay. This is by Michael Romaine, either our second or third favorite reporter over here at the Lounge with Luke Gilfillan. We still haven't decided. Oak Park and River Forest High School School Resource Officer Program is now a thing of the past. During a special meeting on July 9th, the District 200 School Board voted 6-1 to terminate an intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Oak Park that governed the SRO program. I don't know if was it a $155,000 position, or was it $155,000 in spending that the district would have to do, because that's a position that probably requires less spending than a typical teacher position was, because you don't need a smart board. You probably need a computer because he has to file stuff with the village police department or whatever. But you probably don't need as many resources, but you do need, obviously, the weapon, I don't know if he carries a taser on him. Hopefully he does. You need the taser, and then, you need all those things. Police officers require a lot of equipment. I don't know if that $155,000 was in pure salary alone. So the subheadline for this article was, with the $155,000 position gone, district now has money to pay for social worker, as if the district does not already have tens of thousands of social workers that will annoy you about whether you've eaten your fish sandwich today. I'm sure we need another one of those. Board member Craig Isley was the only board member who voted against terminating the agreement. Isley has expressed support for District 200 Superintendent Joylyn Pruitt-Adams' recommendation for a one-year moratorium on the SRO program. The superintendent said at Thursday's meeting that a moratorium would allow the district to gather data on incidents that would require school resource officer intervention within the district, community, and police department work collectively to develop a vision of what we would want for the SRO position to look like if we decide to keep it. So she wants to do another study. I'm sure once the study comes in, she's just going to. No, actually, she's a PhD, so I'm sure she loves reading those reports and stuff. But I'm sure only half of the board members would even read the study if it can't come out. I think that the superintendent came to the right conclusion, Isley said, adding that he believes that students building relationships with the school resource officer at OPRF is important. School resource officers are sworn members of the Oak Park Police Department. But most board members were frustrated that there is no hard data already available for a program that has been in place since 1999, the year the Columbine High School shooting took place in Colorado, prompting schools across the country to bring police officers onto campuses as a preventative measure. So obviously the reason they're there is in case a incident, like perhaps Columbine, or the one that happened at OPRF last year, where a student was flashing a gun to other students in a threatening manner, and then the police had to respond. Let's say that student had done more than just flash that gun in a threatening manner, then maybe in order to save the lives of other students, you would need a school resource officer that's armed there that can deal with the threat in a timely manner. Because the fact is, I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with the idea of having a school resource officer there that is there in case a student were to pose a lethal threat, because the implication is that the school resource officer is only there in case he needs to shoot a student in whatever way. The fact is that that student is going to get shot anyways in that scenario, whether it's a school resource officer doing it or a normal police officer showing up 11 minutes later and 10 dead children later to shoot him anyways. So you do want a resource officer there. I get that it makes you uncomfortable. If you're feeling comfortable at all times, then you're not living in reality. Fact is, reality's uncomfortable. You're going to have to live with that, or you're going to have to live your life you're going to have to live with a false perception of the world, and you're going to reap the consequences of that. Pruitt Adams said the school resource officer's role has evolved since then, was now more focused on building relationships with students and being a conduit between the police department and the high school, particularly in emergency situations. So his role was to prosecute violent things that would, or evaluate, not prosecute, he's not like a lawyer or anything, was to evaluate violent situations that would happen within the school, and would usually contact the police department, keep in contact with them and with the school, because the fact is you're much more likely to get away with beating someone to a pulp if you're inside of a high school cafeteria than if you're out on Madison Street, because if you do it on Madison Street, depending on the type of charge that they file, you're getting 6 years in prison. If you do it in OPRF, because of our restorative justice practices, you end up coming to school the next day and get put in school suspension. Ooh, where you go and sit in the fourth floor hallway room with a locked door, and you do your homework for the day. So, really spooky. I've talked to people that have been in school suspension, and they said they enjoyed it. So that's the type of preventative measures that we have over here at Oak Park and River Forest High School, and that's going to lead to the same behavioral problems. It already does, but not to as much of an extent that you see at like Julian and Brooks. There was a new Wednesday Journal article that was very, very popular that was released last year about the behavioral issues at the school, and to put it mildly, they were not very impressive. Julian and Brooks are not known for their in comparison to maybe like the rest of like Chicago, it's not that bad at all, but in comparison to like Roosevelt or schools in Evanston, Oak Park middle schools do not rank high on the leaderboard of disciplinary issues. I think it was 98% of teachers had reported being sworn at, and I think 50% had reported being violently threatened in some way, not like, oh, I'll beat you up, rather than not like pull a knife on a teacher. But yeah, you can look up that article. It was very, very popular, and it attracted a large community response at the time. But yeah, you can read those, and that's partially due to these restorative justice practices, which when you broadcast to a bunch of students that if you were to go and like beat someone up or swear at a teacher, you're gonna be treated with kid gloves and be like, oh, it's not your fault. Oh, you're only doing this because of your situation, which may be true, but you don't want to tell a student that. You want to tell them, you can fix yourself. The first step to anyone bettering themselves is recognizing the fact that they have agency, and you may not believe in like free will and whatever, and you may believe that violent people are only violent because of the situations they're in, which is, in my opinion, that's the case, but sometimes the best approach to causing them not to be violent is not to have them blame other people, but have them blame themselves and recognize that they can change the course of their own life, which is obviously not the approach of the school, because that would be the logical one, and unfortunately we live in a logical society. So yeah, these like restorative justice practices, which can be kind of good. You don't want to like expel students. That's not something you want to do all the time, but you do want to come down harsh on them. And sometimes an expulsion is not going to be nearly as helpful to a student as yelling at them and making them feel incredibly guilty for their own actions. That's how you should handle it. You shouldn't approach them with kid gloves. You need to make them recognize that they have agency and responsibility for their own behavior, and they can fix it. And if they choose not to fix it, then they're going to reap the consequences of that. And you need to make that very clear going into it, which causes the behavioral issues to subset. I mean, it's the same way. It's the same dynamic between like a parent and a child. If a child were to like hit another child on the street, you wouldn't go to them and be like, "Oh, it's not your fault. It's the fault of me and those around you." And it could be your fault, but because you've raised them with violence. But if it's not your fault, then you got to tell this child like, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. You're grounded for the next 2 months or whatever, or longer, or whatever punishments you can think of. You don't go to them and say it's not your fault and then have them go to a social worker twice a week. They could do that. I'm not opposed to that, but that's not the approach that a parent would take, and it's not an approach that our schools should take. Pruitt Adams says the schools were okay. Along with the officer who patrolled the halls in full uniform, an Oak Park Police Squad car was often parked outside the high school in order to deter potential crime activity and threats. So part of this is about optics. There was a big push to get rid of the school resource officer back in the middle of this year. There was like a giant march. I believe it was in February, right? There was a big news story about that. There was a big walkout, and that was a big thing. And there was push to get rid of the school resource officer then, though, because the board was not affected by the mob that has been enraged in the past few months. They thought, no, we're not going to get rid of the school resource officer. He is going to be useful in case of an emergency, and we need to have them there just in case. But because of the optics that police officers have gotten in circles of Oak Park, they're going to get rid of any police imagery, and in order to make students comfortable, which I think getting rid of things for optics is always bad policy, almost always, any time, ever, and that is exactly what is happening here. Sarah Dixon Spivey, school board president, added that she didn't see how much data the district will get about the program for the upcoming 2020 to 2021 school year, which could be another academic year that includes the majority of students learning outside of the classrooms due to COVID-19 restrictions. So I'm actually in favor of getting rid of the school resource officer for 2020 to 2021. But that being said, I'm not in favor of... In principle, I would be in favor of it, because you want to save the money for that thing, and then they'll maybe reassign the police officer to doing things outside of the school, because no one's going to be inside of the school during COVID-19 except for a couple of like special needs students. So I would be in favor of it, but the fact is that they're not getting rid of it to save money. They're getting rid of it for the optics and to appease the angry mob that attends board meetings. And if they get rid of it for that reason, he's never coming back. That's never going to happen. Like, we're never getting this thing again unless we see a sharp spike in crime, like similar to 1990s levels. and public outcry is like, we need a officer in the school because let's say a kid gets killed, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's say that does happen, like an emotional incident, maybe they'll put him back in the school. But you'd have to have some strong emotional incidents and public outcry against something else to get this school resource officer back in the school. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So, in principle, I would be in favor of getting rid of him for this year, but that's not why they're getting rid of him. And if you get rid of him for this year, he's never coming back. Most of the board members who spoke out against the school resource officer program said that they were not against school resource officers per se. Spivey even said that her black stepson, who attends OPRF, has nothing but good interactions with the school resource officer. I don't think I personally have had a interaction with the school resource officer. I don't really know too many people that have. That's partially because I don't like talk to security guards very often. Actually, no, I take it back. There was one who lent us his poker set while we were at lunch. He was like, "Yo," because we were playing poker with cards and like coins, and he was like, "Yo, I don't think I don't really like the optics of you guys like passing money around while playing poker. Looks like gambling, which is not allowed in the school handbook." He was like, "You guys want me to bring my poker set tomorrow?" And then he played poker with us during lunch periods. And that lasted for like 3 days, and then stopped playing poker with him. Kind of sad. I don't even know what happened to him. I don't think I really saw him in the cafeteria again. Kind of sad. Terminating the agreement, they said, had more to do with getting rid of a program that they don't believe I'm just going to use a synonym, that they don't believe aligns with the restorative justice and racial equity-centered direction that the school is going in. "If we are to create a restorative justice system, then we need to do things differently," said board member Gina Harris, who said that as an educator herself, she's worked directly with amazing SROs. SRO means school resource officer. So no one has anything negative to say about the school resource officer. No one can say a bad story about the school resource officer. They're just getting rid of him because, optics and angry mob that has never met the school resource officer has no idea what the school resource officer does and just think cop bad, ACAB, 1312. I don't even know what a 1312 thing exists. It's like the code for ACAB. For those who don't know what ACAB means, it's this very popular term that means all cops are bastards. So you'll see that. I think bastards is what the B means. So you'll see that graffitied all over like downtown areas and such. If we are creating a restorative justice system, then we need to do things differently. Harris added that despite the lack of quantitative data regarding the SRO program, there's plenty of anecdotal evidence provided by black and brown students who have complained about feeling policed while in the school. So their complaint, once again, is the optics rather than any specific incidents, and it's all anecdotal. So yippee, woohoo, yay! I love when angry mobs dictate policy. Woohoo, yay! Bad policy, best policy. Oak Park and River Forest High School. I feel like that should be their motto. Or maybe it's, the louder you are, the more we'll listen. So, that's also a good one. It's a good one. What does those things that are best even mean? Like, what? What? Like, we are the best. That's all it says. That's all it means. It's such a bad logo, or slogan. It should be like, rough, we're the Oak Parkers, or say, just look up a Hemingway quote. That's a good idea. Ernest Hemingway quote. Maybe it could be a one of those 6-word stories, like the 6-word stories that Ernest Hemingway is famous for, and every Oak Park literary class teaches. A man is not made for defeat. A man can be destroyed but not defeated. How about destroyed but not defeated? That implies that our high school is like ashes. It's just a pile of ashes on the corner of Scoville. So maybe not destroyed but not defeated is not a good word. There is nothing to writing, as all you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed. The world breaks everyone, and afterwards some are strong at broken places. Strong at broken places? That would imply that we have a lot of broken places in school, and I'm not sure that's good optics. What else? There's nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. It's a good quote. It's a really good quote. How about... That's a good quote, but I don't know how we can sloganize it. I feel like superior to your former self. Courage is grace under pressure. How about grace under pressure? That's good. That's good. It's good. It's good. All right, that's grace under pressure. How about that? That's our new slogan. I've declared it. I'll use the Sharpie gavel. Court adjourned. All right, thanks guys for attending my court session. Wow. All right, that's it. That's it. That's the whole article. There were other things, but who cares about those? All right, thanks so much for listening. This is 22 minutes and one article. Wow, if we get 3 articles, we're already at an hour. Fantastic. That's all I have to say on this episode of the Lounge with Luke Gilfillan. Thanks so much for listening, and goodbye.